Well, welcome everybody. Skunagoa sewa gwego, watkwanu horadu. Greetings and peace to all of you and welcome. Gunjokwa sawadahusio skatni garibasa. De chidwanu horado ne sungoya disong, ne wahi rosa anyo, ne gadi, ne ohandu gariwadekwa, ungawana hetstu. Ono sewadahusio gunjokwa, ne igadi, ohandu gariwadekwa, ungadi wanungode. So please lend me your ears for a few moments as we gather our minds together to offer the words that come before all others and offer our greetings and thanks to the Creator and all the things in the natural world, as I have been taught to do and is the custom of my people, the Haudenosaunee. This is what we've been instructed to do before any business shall come to pass where two or more people are gathered. Agwego unska, andito wait nuni, ne ungwat nigura, dano dea tinawarado, ne agwego yunki yenawase, ji o hunjade. We gather our minds together and offer our greetings and thanks to all the things on the earth. All the green and growing things, the medicines, the foods, the plants, the trees, the shrubs and grasses, the waters and the life that within the waters, and also to our relatives, the animals. Agwego unska, andito wait nuni, ne ungwat nigura, dano dea tinawarado, ne agwego yunki yenawase, jit Kanonhsyonne. We gather our minds together and offer our greetings and thanks to all the things in the sky, the birds who sing their beautiful songs, the winds that come from the four directions, our elder brother the sun, our grandmother the moon, our grandfathers the thunders, and the stars in the heavens. Dana onagadi, agwego, de chidwanu horado, ne sungwaya disong. And finally, we offer our choicest greetings and thanks to Sungwaya Disong, the creator of all things. Togni oduhak ne ziwat nigunra. And so now the words that come before all others have been said, and we can all focus on the reason that we're gathered here. If any of you are carrying burdens, I invite you to leave them at the door for the time that we're gathered. You may choose to pick them up on your way out. That's your prerogative. But I suggest and encourage you to leave them there for this Creator to take care of. Today I'd also like to acknowledge this sacred land which has been the site of human activity for many hundreds of thousands of years. It's my understanding that this territory is included in the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which is an agreement between the Iroquois Confederacy and the Confederacy of the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. My understanding is that this treaty agreement talks about making sure that we only take what we need so that there's always fish and food and resources for the generations coming behind. We acknowledge and thank our ancestors for continuing to live in a way that ensures that we remember these agreements and this way of life. Watkwanu horadu, Kanonhsyonne Janice, Garahuine Catherine Brant, Goha Yundajats, Neagate Nistoha, Dano Lennox Hill Goha, Rumwayat, Neragate Niha, Waget Nyaho, Waget Nyadu, Ganyonke Haga, Niwag Wunhoju, Gundege Nide, Wagenu, Gundege Gunagare. Kanonhsyonne, she is making a house, is what they call me. My traditional name given to me by a Turtle clan mother in consultation with my sisters. My deceased mother is Catherine Brant, and my deceased father is Lennox Hill. He was Wolf Clan. I am Turtle Clan from the Mohawk Nation. I'm from Gundege, and that's where I live. In a more formal introduction, I'd continue on to tell you about my family, my children, my grandchildren, who my grandparents are, and so on. But for today, I'll say that both of my parents and all of my grandparents, to my knowledge, at least 6 generations back, are Ganyonkehaga, or Mohawk. I can trace my ancestry back to 1784 when my people, the Mohawks of Fort Hunter from the Mohawk Valley in Upper New York State, arrived at our resettlement at the Bay of Quinte in Ontario. This was a direct result of the American Revolution and the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which prompted our forcible removal from our native homelands. It's customary and respectful that before I address a group, I place myself in relation to who I am within my family, my clan, and my nation. It's important that I position myself so that you know where I'm speaking from, what informs me, and where I am in relation to you and this land that we stand on today. It's important, I believe, to pay respect to ancestral and traditional territories and local Indigenous communities. By doing so, we honor the Indigenous ancestors or stewards of the land and speak to our personal or social relationships with them and with the land. To be meaningful and respectful, a territorial acknowledgement needs to be intentional. So it's a time to give thanks, to consider our individual and collective role in the stewardship of Mother Earth and in building relationships between Indigenous people and communities and the rest of the country. And it's especially meaningful today as we begin Sustainability Week at Queen's, I believe. And it's also important to be meaningful and respectful and intentional, because I don't believe it should be something that we do by rote. If you just take what I say and write it down and then repeat it, there's no heart or feeling or meaning in it. So I always encourage people to consider your own relationships and how you relate to the land and the people, and when you're giving a territorial acknowledgement, that you speak from that place. So I would encourage all of you to consider the land that we sit on today. I'm also the director of the Office of Indigenous Initiatives here at Queen's. It's my responsibility to work towards the implementation of the recommendations from our Truth and Reconciliation Task Force report, which we completed in 2017. I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome you all here today, and I look forward to our discussions and dialogue. I'm always open to questions, so at any time if you have a question, I'm happy to answer, or well, to consider it. Maybe I won't answer it. But I might try. So again, I'm apologizing for reading from notes. I will probably read a bit and veer off of my notes, and depending on if there's questions, talk about some other things as well. What I've done today, I think in the explanation of the event, it talked a bit about my research as well, because I'm a graduate student in the Department of Gender Studies here, also in all my spare time. And I'm looking at the issues of gender and inclusion and exclusion within the traditional community amongst my people, which we refer to as the Longhouse. And that's a whole nother big explanation. I'll get into part of that. So, as a clan mother, I'm also a clan mother in my Longhouse, and that's another big explanation. But as a clan mother, I understand and acknowledge the specific gifts and responsibilities of all the individuals in our community, but particularly the women, as we are the foundation of our people. I was once told by an Onondaga clan mother that everything from birth to death is in the hands of the women. And in articulating this for myself, I wrote this piece, which I decided I wanted to share with you today. And perhaps it'll give you an idea of my life and the work that I do. But many of you in the room will relate, being women and mothers and grandmothers and caretakers. So who I am Mohawk, Kanonhsyonne, Turtle Clan, Waganyahtu. I come from a people who have been here since the beginning of time. We are of creation, from the Creator. Who we are is in the land we spring from and all the rest of creation to which we are related. I am one small part of the whole Haudenosaunee Iroquois Confederacy, Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, Tuscarora. I am a woman, a daughter, a sister, a mother, a grandmother, and an aunt, a friend, caretaker, nurturer, counselor, midwife, a healer, cook, cleaner, chauffeur, a provider, a political and spiritual activist, but above all, a Mohawk woman with a deep sense of commitment to the survival of our people, our history, our culture, our language, our spirituality, our voice. What I do, empower myself and others through my work and my voice. This is what I choose to do as a teacher and a speaker and a storyteller and a listener. Validate who we are and where we come from, with pride, courage, strength, and modesty, so we can see where we are going and who we are becoming. Magnificently Ungwehunwe, as the Creator intended. Ungwehunwe is the Mohawk word for human being. It means the real people, or the original people. It's the same in Ojibwe language. Anishinaabe is the same word as Ungwehunwe. It means we are the people. Our cosmology, or way of understanding our place in the world, is defined through our Ohandugari Wadekwa, which are the words that come before all others, which are the words that I shared with you just a brief moment ago. Our creation story, and more recently, recent being in the 16 or 1700s, the Code of Handsome Lake, which is referred to as the Gaiwio. The Haudenosaunee creation story is a space filled with feminine energy, the beginning of an indigenous worldview and cosmology. Within this creation story, woman is first, and this is our beginning, is what informs our matrilocal, matrilineal way of being. This way of being is reflected again in our languages. According to Teresa McCarthy, inflections of gender are important as well. Our languages use feminine gender pronouns as the unmarked form in both singular and plural cases. For example, in a mixed group of men and women, the reference is by the female plural pronoun. A feminine pronoun, she, one, someone, is used for persons of unspecified gender or for the collective reference people. These linguistic attributes signal the inherent significance of Haudenosaunee women, both to and within Haudenosaunee concepts of tradition. Excuse me. Our land, our sustenance, and our people, from the beginning of time, has been viewed and represented as beginning with the female. Sky Woman, Mother Earth, Grandmother Moon, the three sisters who are our sustenance, and so on. There is a feminine spirit that flows from our Mother Earth through the Longhouse teachings that has a mystic potency, anchoring a worldview filled with ecocentric knowledge. The ecology of the land informs our being and relationships, as well as our duties and responsibilities. Our ceremonies spring from the changing seasons, and acknowledging and giving thanks for everything the earth provides. Our primary responsibility as Ungwehunwe is to live a life of gratitude and to acknowledge and respect the living life, the living earth, and ensure that it continues. It's important to understand the notion of how the community, I think I'm going to skip that part. This, what I prepared, I think, talks more about our research than about our role as women in our communities. So maybe what I'll do is set that aside and just talk to you. So I told you earlier that I'm a clan mother, and I'll tell you how I got to be a clan mother. In our traditional societies, maybe I'll go back a step. Before I talk about that, I'll talk about our communities, because it's talking about our role in our communities. Our communities are much like everybody else's communities. There's divisions, there's factions, and there's just all kinds of people and systems of belief and politics and spirituality and every kind of expression you can think of that exists in the world also exists in my small community. And I can only speak with authority about my own community. I can't speak for anybody else. I can't speak for the whole Confederacy. I can't even speak for all Mohawk people, but I can speak for what happens in my life in Kanonhsyonne. I might have a little bit of a picture of the wider world, but it's not my place to speak for anybody else except for myself. So in our community, we have a division. We have an elected band council that is a creation of the Government of Canada through the development of the Indian Act, was a process of governance that is an elected band council system. So that is an imposed system and not one that is ours traditionally. Traditionally, we have hereditary positions that are defined by our clans. So in the Mohawk Nation, we have 3 clans, Turtle, Wolf, and Bear. I'll always have turtles on my body because I'm a turtle, and I want anybody else who's Haudenosaunee when I meet them to know that I'm Turtle. Especially if they're a man and I'm looking for a husband. Because our teaching is everyone who's a turtle is my family. Whether they're a Mohawk turtle, a Tuscarora turtle, an Oneida turtle, even if they're an Ojibwe turtle or a Lakota turtle, if Lakotas have turtles, I don't even know if they do. Anywhere there's a turtle, they're my family. So I can't marry someone who's my own family, just like anywhere else. So I'm going to show off that I'm a turtle, so any turtles will know that. Stay off. If you're a turtle, stay away. So each clan in our nation, because we consider ourselves nations, in the Mohawk Nation, we have the 3 clans. And within each clan, we have 3 families that we call, that the way we define our kinship and our relationship to each other is through these families. So in the Mohawk Nation, we have Dagarihogum, Satdegariwade, and Ayunwata. Those are the 3 title families in the Mohawk Nation. So and within each family, we have a chief, a clan mother, usually a man and a woman faith keeper, and we'll have other people like a sub-chief, who's second to the chief, and usually each family will also have like a head cook. And that person's very important, because whenever there's meetings of the people, food plays a big part in how we live and how the business that we do with each other. So it's also part of how we legitimize our gatherings is by sharing food, and it's part of how we build community and how we relate to each other, to our family, and to our guests. I was always taught that when a guest comes to your house, the first thing that you do is offer them food and a comfortable place to sit. And what we say, we brush the dust off of them from their travels. And once they've been fed and once they're comfortable, then we'll ask them, what's your business? And then we talk about why they're there, whether it is for business or maybe it's just they need someone to chat to, but always to be hospitable and offer them that respite before you get into anything heavier. So again, food is important. So it was quite a long time ago. So the division. So there's the traditional community, and I get off on tangents. Feel free to bring me back. There's a traditional community and the band council community. And I mean, we're all related. So there's people in families who sit on both camps. And then there's people that sit on the fence and don't decide to sit in either camp. They're just kind of watching. Maybe they'll sit over here today, maybe they'll sit over there tomorrow, depending what the issues at hand are. But within the traditional community, that's where I sit. I'm a part of the Longhouse community. I don't participate in the band council community. And part of the reason I don't do that is because I'm part of the traditional community. And we govern ourselves with something that we call the Guyana Ragoa, or the Great Law of Peace. And within our Great Law, when we make a commitment to live according to the Longhouse, we commit our lives to that. And we commit our lives to living according to the law. And within our law, it says that if I choose to participate in outside laws or outside governments, then I'm outside of our circle. So participating in things like the band council election or a provincial or a federal election is outside of our circle. So I don't do those things because I consider myself to be inside the circle, so I don't participate in those kinds of things. And I know a lot of people ask me why, because then they feel like I don't have a voice and I haven't had a voice in decision making, but I'm okay with that because I'm where I'm meant to be, I believe, and that's inside the circle of the law and in the Longhouse. So it hasn't always been so in Tyendinaga. It's only probably been in the last 35 years that the Longhouse has come back to Tyendinaga. It operated there, but mostly underground, and that was a product of a lot of things. The schools, the churches, colonization, patriarchy, all those fun things. All those things drove our ways underground. So they operated in my community underground for many years. And then I left the community for many years. But I came back in 1986, I think. And several other women who had left came back. And women, as I said, are the driving force in our communities. So we decided to come together, and we designed what we called the Women's Circle. And basically we designed that because one of the women said, I know about this place, we can get a grant, and she wanted to apply for a grant so that we could bring singers and cultural teachers into our community to teach the young children especially, but everybody, because we hadn't had these things openly in our community for many years. So we applied for the grant and we got it, and we went and we encouraged a young man from Akwesasne, one of our sister communities, to come, and he taught us about songs and dances and how to make drums and rattles. And first it was just the kids, and then the kids brought their parents, and then their aunties started to come, and then their grandma started to come, and then our classes, they were workshops, all of a sudden our workshops turned into these, and then it was like a potluck. Everybody brought food, so our workshops turned into these big social events where we were bringing families and people together, but we were learning our culture, we were learning our songs again, we were learning our dances again, and we were raising up pride in who we were as people again. So as a result of that, we also started to lift up the Longhouse again. And there were people who were interested in bringing that life, that community back into our community, and that way of thinking and seeing the world. So the women started going and traveling around to the other Haudenosaunee communities to talk to the clan mothers in the other communities to see, what do we need to know? What do we need to learn? What do we need to put in place so that we can be an active, functioning longhouse in our community? We learned a lot of things on those trips. One of the sad things we learned was that a lot of the clan mothers were getting older. They weren't passing on their knowledge. The places where we would go, where we'd think we'd learn a lot, we'd be so excited, oh, we're going to go to Six Nations and we're going to learn so much from those clan mothers. And those clan mothers were getting old, and they weren't passing on their knowledge to people. And by this time, historically, a lot of things had happened, like with the implementation of the Gaiwea or the Code of Handsome Lake. There are a whole lot of people in our communities who believe there's a lot of Christianity that's been mixed in with our way, and that is actually what the Gaiwea is. There are people who believe that, and there are people who argue that. So, like anywhere else, there's always debates. But sadly, the women we went to seek the knowledge from didn't have the knowledge we were seeking. So, and we learned also, the good thing we learned was that we knew more than we thought we did, which is always the case. You never realize how much you really know, right? And I think some of that we knew intrinsically. It's like that cell remembrance. It's like deja vu. It's like you know something, you don't remember why you know it or where you learned it or who told you, but you know you know. And I think that was part of it too. And I believe that's because of our ancestral connection, to our ancestors who came before us. This is getting to be a long, involved way of explaining to you how I got to be a grandmother. So we were going around to meetings, and we didn't have a longhouse in our community, which is our gathering place, which is where we have ceremonies, and we gather there for meetings, and we just gather there to do whatever we want to do. It's our community center, our longhouse, but we do our business there as well in our ceremonies. And we didn't have a longhouse in Kanonhsyonne at the time. So those of us who were following Longhouse Way would pack our children up and drive down the road to Akwesasne or another community when it was time to have ceremonies, so that we could take part in ceremonies. And we did that for a long time, probably 10 years. And then finally we were at ceremony in Akwesasne one day, and the women there said, you know what you need to know to do this at home. You need to just start doing this at home instead of running down here all the time. And so we started to have ceremonies. First we had to rent a hall, sometimes we'd do them outside if it was a nice day. And eventually we started doing fundraising and we raised money to build ourselves a longhouse. During all of that, we were also politically involved as women. So we would travel around to Mohawk Nation women's meetings to learn about the business of our people and to engage with other Mohawk women about the business that was part of who we are as people. And so they told us, you need to go back home and you need to appoint clan mothers. You know, we need to be organized. We need to get organized. So part of getting organized was appointing clan mothers, because the clan mothers are the ones, that's where the decision starts about who the chief is going to be. So we needed the women in place first. And we see our women are seen as the foundation of our nation. So the women needed to be in place first. So we went back home. I gathered up the Turtle Clan people and told them this story. The women said we need clan mother. So let's look around at who we have and who do we want, who can hold this job right now. So they asked me to do that. Partly it was because I was one of very few women who was there. But partly it was because I was already active, and partly because I already carried some knowledge. And it's not really a job that you turn down. I always say it's an honor and a burden. And so, but I told them I wasn't qualified to do the job because I don't speak my language. Part of why I had to read my notes. It's one of my biggest regrets is that I don't speak my language, and it's something that I will work towards, but I don't have it still. And so I told them I'll hold the seat, and that's symbolic language that we use in the longhouse to say that I'll do this job until somebody comes along who's more qualified than I. So I'm a seat-warming clan mother is what it's referred to as, and they agreed that would be acceptable to them, and that was 30 years ago. So I'm still waiting for someone to come along who's more qualified than me to do this job. But I'm a seat-warming clan mother, and I'm a community clan mother, and I'm not a condoled clan mother. So that's other language that we use, condoled. And condolence is a ceremony that's done before the people that acknowledges you in that position. So everybody in your community, not only your clan, but your community, and then at some point there's nation clan mothers. So before the whole of the Mohawk Nation, certain women will be condoled or put through ceremony where they're acknowledged as being the head women of those clans. So I'm not condoled.
Do people get voted? How does this actually, how did this happen 30 years ago? Just by being asked?
Mm-hmm. And it's a role you hold for your life.
Okay.
It's a life appointment. It's so I'm here until I die or until I get so sick that I can't do it anymore. If I go blind or something like that, then I would step down and someone else would take the seat.
Can someone stand up and say, I think I'm more qualified than you? Is that no?
No, it's by the people. And we're taught that if anybody wants the job, if somebody comes and says that, that's the last person you choose. Because they don't understand the magnitude of the job. Because, I'll tell you now, being a clan mother means that my life doesn't belong to me anymore. I don't belong to me or my family, my blood family anymore, like my sons. Because I belong to the people and I belong to the clan. And my life pretty much belongs to them also. So there were times, like does anybody remember Oka?
Yeah.
We don't have a really young audience today. I was at a thing the other day and I asked people if they remembered Oka. Nobody remembered Oka. I'm like, oh my God, how could you not?
But we do have young people.
We do have young people. If you don't know what Oka is, look it up. So during Oka, during that uprising, during that whole event, it was the Mohawk Nation at Kanonhsyonne who started that whole thing. So it was the Mohawk Nation, not just at Kanonhsyonne, but the whole of the Mohawk Nation. We have 8 communities, 8 Mohawk communities that make up the Mohawk Nation. And so when it's national business, we all get called together. So there were times when I'd get a call at 2 o'clock in the morning and they'd say, we're having a meeting in Montreal at 8:30 in the morning, you gotta be here. It takes me 4.5 hours to get to Montreal. So I had a little baby at the time. So I'd roll him up in his blanket and I'd go knock on my niece's door and say, I gotta go. Here he is, and she'd take him and look after him because my family understood that this was my responsibility and it was my job. And thankfully I had a good, strong, supportive family. So I always say that I birthed my son, but my niece is really his mother. I'm just the biological factor. Because he came into my life at the same time I was doing all this work. I was only 29 at the time. So do the math. Yes, I'm 59. I'll be 60 in January. And that was very young to be appointed a clan mother. It was too young, because normally you're not asked to be a clan mother until after your children are raised, after that part of your life is finished. But in our community, we didn't have anybody that age. We didn't have a lot of people who were involved in the Longhouse, and we were all young at the time. So we had to pick up and do the work because we were there, and there was it, and there were we, and it had to get done. So, as that Onondaga clan mother said, everything from birth to death is in the responsibility of the women. And the way it's been explained to me is that this is our community. Everything inside here is the women's responsibility. Everything out here is the men's responsibility. So the whole social fabric of our communities is our responsibility. When we have young women who want to have children, we teach them about how to look after their bodies, what medicines they can use, how to prepare their body to be ready to have a baby. And it goes back even further to when they start to menstruate. We call that their moon time. When they start to have that time in their lives, we usually gather up as women and have, we call it an auntie's tea or something with them. So all the women gather up with that young woman who's now a woman, and we talk to her about looking after herself, spiritually, emotionally, physically, how to look after your body, how to respect your body, how to be in good relationship with yourself, how to understand what you need to know to have a good relationship. With a man, if you're choosing to have a relationship with a man, to have a baby, then what does that mean, How do you look after yourself? And also, how do you look after him? And how do you ask him to look after you? Because you have to learn how to do all those things. I fortunately did not get to have an auntie tea when I was growing up. It's not something that happened when I was a young woman. So when I got older and we started doing these things in the Longhouse again, we wanted to bring back those traditions because we were coming out of a time when there had been a lot of dysfunctions in our families and in our communities. There was a lot of sexual abuse and dysfunction, and so part of our work as women was to bring us out of that and to try to revitalize and rejuvenate the beautiful way of life we believed we had historically. So part of that was the auntie's tea. And so we'd take turns talking to the young lady and we'd tell her about all of these things. And I remember hearing a story from an older woman one day, and she told me that the things she heard that day at her tea party, no one's ever told her anything. She was like 70 years old, and she told me nobody ever told me anything after that day that I hadn't already heard. I didn't understand what they were telling me, but they told me those things, and I remembered later in my life. And so sometimes it's embarrassing, you think, and sometimes it's like, I don't want to think about that. But the reason your aunties tell you this thing is because you don't want to think about your mother and your father maybe doing those things that they're talking about. So it's easier when it comes from your aunties usually. And that's the role that aunties play. And we talk about that. Not all women are meant to be mothers. Some women are meant to be aunties. And the role of auntie is very important in our culture. Our word for auntie, our mother's sisters, is the same as our word for mother. It's ista. So our mother and our mother's sisters are all our mothers, and that's how we refer to them. So aunties play a really important role, and that's a teaching that we give, especially to women who found out that they can't have babies, and it can be very sad if they wanted to have babies, and it's like, but you still have an important role to play, sometimes more important than the mother, because any of you who have nieces or nephews, sometimes they don't want to go and talk to their mom and dad. They want to talk to their auntie because that's the one who, their fanty, their fun auntie, right? The one who understands and the one who can talk to them freely and openly about anything. How am I doing for time?
Almost quarter to
Okay, oh dear.
Really?
I'm not getting them. I haven't gotten very far. So culturally, I guess those are the important things for women. But I mean, that's only about clan mother, and that's only a tiny little bit about being a clan mother. But one of the important things I guess I want to explain too in terms of our governance and our leadership with women at the role is it's our job to identify chief. So I sit in the under the title the Garihogum. The Garihogum is a chieftainship title amongst our people. And so when I choose a chief, when my clan chooses a chief, he sits in that title role. They say he takes on the name, but the name isn't really a name, it's a title, it's a role. Right now, I don't have a chief. My chief stepped down, and I should have appointed one right away, but we have a small community. And we have even a smaller number of men who are involved in our traditional community. And we have even a smaller number of men who are willing to step up and take on that job right now. So that's the way across our whole nation and really across our confederacy right now is we're kind of poor in terms of how many people we have who are doing this work.
When you refer to confederacy, what is that?
The Haudenosaunee or the Iroquois Confederacy, and that's the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora nations. We're all the same thing.
the chief cannot be a woman?
No. The clan mother is the woman lead and the chief is the man lead. But the important thing to remember is the chief is not like a dictator. The chief is a servant. He's supposed to be humble, and he's the voice of the people. So the way I understand it, and again, everything I'm sharing with you is as I understand it, and someone else might have a different understanding from me. But as I understand it, the clan mother is the liaison really between the people and the chief. She's the one that, because she's here, right? She's always here in the community. She knows what the people are thinking. She knows what the people want. She's engaged with the people all the time because she's right there. The men are out doing diplomatic work. Historically, they'd be gone to war for weeks on end. You know, like a lot of the time, the men were out of the community. It was always the women who were here. So, in order to fill my chief title, I would call together all my clan women, all the Turtle Clan women in my families. We'd all come together and we'd take a look at all of our nephews, our brothers, our uncles, our clan family men, Turtle Clan. And we'd look at them and see who do we have who can take on this role. And we'll say, okay, maybe Fred here, Fred can do the job. We think he's the best guy for the job. So we've made a decision as women, and we starts with us because we know them from the time they're here really, but from the time they're here. And we know what we've taught them, and we've watched them grow up. And you know, watching your children, what kind of characters they are, what kind of personality they have, whether they have a good heart, you know, all the things you're looking for in a leader. You can tell that when they're little people. Well, we think we can as mothers. So it starts here with us, and we picked Fred, and we think he's the best one. He had the best upbringing, and we think he's got all the qualities he needs to be the chief, but we use a lot of symbolic language. So then we throw it over to the men, which means we're just telling the men, we think Fred's the best guy for the job, and we think that we should stand him up in this title position. Now, men know men different than women know men, especially different than their mothers and their aunties know them, right? So the men will counsel on it. They'll take a look at Fred. They'll all think about how they know him and how they've seen him as a man. Is he a good supporter? Is he trustworthy? Is he caring and nurturing? But, you know, does he have conviction? Does he have the best interest of the people in his heart? And they might agree with the women and say, yes, I think Fred's the best man for the job. Or they might say, no, I don't really think Fred's the guy. But if they're going to say no, they have to have a really good reason. It can't just be, I don't like him because he, whatever, stole my girlfriend or something. But it's got to be a really good reason, like he did something really horrendous, and that would be the reason they would say they didn't agree with him. And that's fair. And if it is so, and the men agree that he's not the best man for the job, he's not the best candidate, then they throw it back to the women again, and we start all over again. And we do this until we all agree on one person. And when the Turtle Clan agrees on one person, then we stand Fred up, if it's Fred, in front of the other two clans, the Wolves and the Bears, and we announce that this is our candidate for this position. And then, as long as everybody agrees, and as long as we haven't contravened any of the laws, then he'll be stood up, he'll be
Does he have
appointed.
a choice?
Well, you always have a choice, but not really. Theoretically, you have a choice, and people have said no,
Okay.
but it doesn't happen very often because chances are Fred maybe was groomed from the time he was born. Part of what we also do as women and clan mothers and aunties and mothers is we watch our children. We watch them to see what their gifts are, and then we cultivate those gifts. Everybody has a role. When they talk about it takes a whole community to raise a child, that's part of that. Watching them to see what their gifts are and then raising them strongly in those gifts. So chances are Fred might have been being groomed from his whole life. He probably was going to ceremonies, he was learning songs, he knows the dances, he might have been being taught about the great law, all these things. So he probably carried a lot of that knowledge already, the man who is chosen. So it would really take something catastrophic, I think, for him to say no. Because as I said, being a chief is the same as being a clan mother. It's an honor and a burden, you know, and it's for life.
It is, that was what I was just going to ask.
It's also for life. Yeah.
And will Fred have some kind of relationship with the band council chief?
Not really.
So there's no sort of give and take there? No.
In recent history, there's been more dialogue between the two forms of government, but in Tyendinaga, the band council government doesn't really acknowledge the traditional government. In other communities, it's different. In Six Nations, I believe the band council government acknowledges the Confederacy more than we do in Tyendinaga. In Akwesasne, I believe it's the same. There's a kind of a relationship. Although they have like a tri-council in Akwesasne because they're in Canada, the United States, right? And they're in Ontario and Quebec. So they have a tribal council, a band council, and then the Longhouse Council as well, the Confederacy Council. So, yeah, it's always complicated and nothing's ever simple. I think we're almost out of time.